So the movie that I will be discussing is called Chungking Express, and it was directed by Wong Kar-wai in 1994. Um, this movie suggests the has the main themes of this sort of lasting impressions of love, and how even these brief moments with people, especially in such an impersonal place as Hong Kong, can really have this long-lasting effect on you. And basically the whole movie is this intertwining of these two love stories. Um, they're both different. They use different actors. In the first movie, where the scene that I picked from is from this first part of this first movie within the whole movie. It's about these two cops. Well, in both movies, there are these two cops looking for love, and they've both been dumped. Um, in the first one, in both the movies they frequent at Midnight Express. However, in the first one, he's dumped and he doesn't want to accept this fact that he has been dumped. And in the second one, he sort of finds girls. He finds love with this girl who really lives in the moment, and is kind of quirky and kind of weird, but he falls in love with her. So to understand what this movie, the main themes about it, and the way that it's filmed, you have to understand the context of the movie. And to do this, we have to know that 10 years prior to when the movie was made, in 1984, the Sino-British Agreement was signed. And with this, Hong Kong was handed over to China. And so they had to sort of reestablish their own relationships with who they were, their relationship to China, their strong relationship to the USA and to the Western culture that Japan has. And what defines them as a country and as a culture, because they are both close to the mainland of China and that they are this Western colony. So Hong Kong sort of created their own identity, which is this melting pot of different identities. And so this is sort of part of the second new wave. Hong Kong's already had this first new wave. It's very artsy. It's very unlike Hong Kong's other movies. When we think about them, we think of sort of like Jackie Chan and these big blockbusters that brought in a lot of money. But with this movie, it becomes more artsy, and we see elements of this in Chungking Express through this very kinetic camera. It's always moving, and it creates this very blurry effect, and it really does show the grittiness of Hong Kong and Hong Kong in real life, and doesn't try to glamorize it or anything. So the scene that I chose is about 40 minutes into the movie, and it has this woman, and it basically is this woman and this man making out in this bar scene, this very Western bar in Hong Kong, and then it basically moves on to this man being shot by this other lady because they've been drug dealing, and he sort of threatened her life because it wasn't going well. So in the beginning of the scene, they are making out. This drunk Asian lady, however, she is dressed up as in this Western way, which I will discuss, and this man is a white man from America. And as they're dancing, he sort of gets drawn outside by the sound of these kittens, which is a trap, and then when he's outside, he gets shot. So then the scene ends with this other lady who he's been working with, drug dealing, walks past, because she's the one who shot him. She sort of runs away. This scene really interested me, because there is this interest in this idea of westernization in this scene, and it really does talk to not just idea within the movie and within the new wave itself. And it does provide this transition into the second movie, which is very important because having two different stories within one movie, the way it's transitioned is very important. Within the scene, there is this idea of this desire to be accepted, but also this idea of accepting oneself. And it all is in this one sort of short scene of this man being killed by this woman. And what I will be discussing is the mise en scène and how this idea of desire talks back to these themes within this scene and within the movie as a whole, mainly through setting and the costume and the lighting. So the setting. Inside this bar, it's very warm. The colors are very red, these orangey tints, very warm colors. There's sort of music in the background, very Western music. There's banter, there's chatter. It sort of seems like it's a friendly place to go. It's desirable as this refuge because as we look outside, the mise en scène is completely different. outside it's cold, it's dark, it's rainy. Even as the woman goes to look outside, we have this gate stopping her, and it sort of shows that inside is not a prison, but outside is where the bad things happen, and inside is this desirable place to stay as a refuge. So, but it could also be this idea that this lady is being trapped in this Western culture because she is this lady who's being forced to wear this blonde wig and these sort of very American clothes, this tight flowery dress. So maybe this gate also represents her trying to escape, but her being scared because maybe it's easier and more desirable to be in this Western world. So maybe this idea that outside is Japan and it's scary and it's raining, and the inside is America with its warm tints, its American music, its jukebox, people chatting lightly, but really no depth to inside. Her sort of drunk and putting on airs for this man. The costume also provides this, gives us this sense. In the beginning, when they're making out, the man is shirtless. It's very desirable. It's quite a passionate scene. He's sort of overpowering her, and the light is on him and also almost overshadowing her. So it's very passionate. It's very desirable. However, even though his shirt is off, it's not. He does not seem vulnerable. He seems like he is overtaking her, like he's in control of her. The woman, on the other hand, I mean, she is dressed very Americanized. She has this blonde wig on. She has these red lips, sort of like Marilyn Monroe look. She has this very touristy American type, flowery, tight dress. And this is sort of a theme throughout the movie, of sort of being this sort of mix of cultures. We see it in other parts of the movie in the ways that they use all these different languages, and all these Western ideas with sort of the American songs played, and we see this really in the woman, her influence in being American, which also reflects back to this whole new wave idea of Japan sort of identifying themselves as a culture and sort of having to weed through all these other influences from the outside world. Also, her red lips and her wig sort of give this idea of a sexual desire for this man. Like, this is what he desires. This is sort of his sexual craving, and she is dressing up just for him, so that she is desirable for him. However, it's also noticeable that the way that she's dressed is the way that the killer is dressed. The lady who comes back later on the scene and actually shoots the man, and so it sort of keeps you, maybe this man is making the killer dress this way because after she kills him, she sort of rips off her wig. So maybe just getting rid of him and his influences, or maybe it's just the trend, the fashion in that way to seem desirable. So these women are sort of a slave to this man's ideals. They're the first lady, the lady who was kissing the man, is objectified further by the way that she was dancing to this jukebox, to this American music. She's dancing with it. It sort of makes her appear as an object, not as a person, just someone to be desirable to this man. And it sort of objectifies her just like the jukebox that is Americanized, these bar stools that are American, and her is also just another object in this man's life to make him feel at home and like he is in America. The other woman is sort of very alluring almost, we desire to see what's behind her, what she's wearing. She's wearing this trench coat, these sunglasses, this wig. We can't really see her and what she's thinking. However, after she kills this man, she sort of takes off her wig as if she is finally accepting who she is and she's finally free. And then as the scene sort of moves away, we see the blood is sort of bathed in this blue, cool light instead of these warm tints. And blood is actually red, so it just sort of gives the idea that this woman is sort of an ice-cold killer and she doesn't really hold remorse for what she's just done. So I think this movie is also very applicable for people who are sort of lost in this modern world and they're struggling with their own identities and with these sort of pressures to be something that you're not, which is very applicable to today as the world is almost finding a common ground, a common line, and people are struggling to keep to their own cultures and to their own identities, and still struggling with accepting yourself.